This pandemic has highlighted to the world what we have all known for decades, the true relevance of a robust and resilient mobile networks. Now, the whole world depends on the mobile industry to continue shaping and building change with determination and conscience, and propelling digital advancement for a better future.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to GSMA's Thrive Asia Pacific. My name is Julian Gorman. I'm the head of the region for GSMA, and I'm here to introduce this first session to you. Over the next 3 days, we'll hear from leaders from across the ecosystem as we adapt to the unique challenges we currently face globally. The digital ecosystem across Asia Pacific is proving one of the most innovative in the world, and you're going to see some of these speakers over the next couple of days really with innovation. And this opening keynote session is focused on how we move from lockdown to thriving. Now, to kick off this session, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our Mats Granrud, Director General of the GSMA.
Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you today about leadership in times of change. So, welcome to 2020. My name is Mats and I'm the Director General of GSMA, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you today to Thrive Asia Pacific. What a difference a year makes. In 2019, we met in a packed auditorium in Kuala Lumpur, and now in 2020, we'll be known in the history books as the year that changed everything. Today, I'm in London, and you are all over the world, and we are together at Thrive Asia Pacific as we launch 3 days of online discussions with the region's digital leaders. This year, we have experienced substantial upheaval, and now we live and work with continual uncertainty. It's easy to be a good leader in good times, but it's in times of conflict that exceptional leaders step forward. Asia Pacific is home to some of the most innovative markets in the world, and I believe that now is the time for Asia Pacific to be bold. Now is the time for new thinking. Now is the time for adapting how we do business. And now is the time for ambitious public-private partnerships and collaboration. This year, we have seen that mobile connectivity provides stability and all-important continuity. As many countries are again considering lockdowns, we can now work from home, educate our children from home, visit family and friends virtually, and receive vital healthcare information and fight this pandemic together. So what is marking change specifically in Asia Pacific? Well, firstly, the digital ecosystem has been vital in responding to COVID-19. In this region, with 2.8 billion mobile subscribers, the countries that have a stronger and more stable digital economies appear to have better resisted the impact. And so digitization is moving fast up the agenda for businesses and governments. Secondly, 5G is gathering pace. 11 markets have now launched commercial mobile 5G services, and 8 more have announced plans to do the same. And of course, in some countries, 5G is a longer-term vision and 4G continues to grow. Now, there will be 1.1 billion 5G connections by 2025, equal to roughly 23% of total connections. And mobile operators will invest almost $500 billion in their networks between 2019 and 2025, of which 75% will be on 5G deployments. And thirdly, there will be almost 700 million new mobile internet users by 2025, which will be half of all new subscribers globally. And as the connectivity gap closes, the adoption of mobile-based tools and solutions like agriculture, education, and healthcare improves livelihoods in low to middle income countries and reduces the mobile gender gap. Our vision at the GSMA is to unlock the full power of connectivity so that people, industry, and society thrive. During the next 3 days, let's connect, let's listen, and let's learn to ensure that mobile continues to be the great enabler across Asia Pacific, currently generating 5.4% of GDP, that our collaborative leadership continues to drive digital inclusion, that governments prioritize digital strategies so that all citizens are connected and informed, leaving no one behind. And we start with a very impressive leaders in this first keynote. His Excellency, Mr. S. Iswaran, Minister for Communication and Information from Singapore, Tan Sri Jamaladuddin Ibrahim, Managing Director and President Group CEO of Axiata Group Berhad, and Ki-Young Choi, Minister of Science and ICT, Korea, and Tony Fernandez, CEO of AirAsia Group. Now, I look forward to hearing their visions for the acceleration of digitization into the future, our future. This is our great leadership challenge in these times of uncertainty to propel digital advancements for a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mats. It's now my honor to welcome Minister Iswaran from Singapore, Minister for Communications and Information, to discuss accelerating digitalization to build a resilient digital future.
Excellencies, Mr. Mats Granreed, Director General GSMA, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Let me start by thanking GSMA for the kind invitation to address you at this inaugural Thrive Asia Pacific event. It has been nearly a year since COVID-19 entered our lives and our lexicon. 2020 has been a year of profound disruptions to our lives, our economies, and our societies. While the crisis is far from over, I believe there are silver linings in the dark clouds of the pandemic. Countries have proven resilient in the face of unprecedented challenges, thanks in no small measure to digital technologies. Digitalization has been key to supporting government administrative functions, ensuring business continuity, and sustaining interpersonal links. As countries plan for their post-pandemic recovery, digitalization will undoubtedly feature prominently as a defining enabler. Allow me to share a few thoughts on what we can do to ready ourselves for the next phase of growth in the digital economy so that we can emerge stronger from this crisis. Firstly, we must lay strong foundations for the digital economy. In Singapore, the value of our investments in building a robust digital infrastructure and resilient mobile network came to the fore during the pandemic. When we had to close office premises and schools for a period, our businesses and workers shifted to telecommuting, and teachers and students adopted home-based learning with relative ease. These changes would not have been possible without a strong telecommunications network, high internet penetration rates, and consistent efforts to promote digital capabilities and literacy. As digital technology continues to evolve, we must keep a keen eye on the next bound of development. To this end, Singapore is investing in the nationwide development of a secure and resilient 5G communications network. 5G will be the backbone of our digital economy, helping to unlock exciting opportunities for our people, businesses, and industries. To build a vibrant ecosystem, the government is working closely with industry and technology partners to develop sustainable business use cases as well as nurture a strong pipeline of talent. Beyond 5G, we have also been building capabilities in frontier areas such as artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. These emerging technologies have significant potential to improve lives, enhance productivity, and open new fields for growth. Our investments in digital infrastructure and talent will reap long-term benefits for the economy by enabling us to ride successive technological waves decisively. Second, it is imperative that we stay open and connected digitally. The rapid digitalization of economies and businesses creates many new possibilities. For instance, regardless of their stage of development, businesses can use digital solutions to connect to global markets, for supplies, and to expand their customer base. We should therefore facilitate the freer flow of data so that international trade can continue to flourish and our people can remain connected to the global commons. Singapore has been an early advocate for digital economy agreements, or DEAs. These agreements are the next frontier in the global economic architecture. We are developing an international network of DEAs with like-minded countries to build interoperable digital systems and frameworks for cross-border data flows and electronic transactions. To date, Singapore has signed DEAs with New Zealand, Chile, and Australia, and talks are ongoing with the Republic of Korea. We welcome more countries to partner us in this venture. At the same time, robust regulations and common standards must undergird the free flow of data. The key is to foster mutual trust such that countries have certainty that their data and information will be safe when moved beyond their borders. Regulations such as the APAC cross-border privacy rules ensure that data transferred overseas is handled sensitively and with due process. This way, businesses and consumers can be assured that their data and transactions are secure. This sense of confidence is key to catalyzing digital adoption. It is therefore essential that we collectively strengthen the global flow and protection of data so as to maximize its value and deliver better outcomes for businesses and consumers. Finally, as we move towards an increasingly digital world, we have to guard against the emergence of a digital divide. We must ensure that no one is left behind in this digital transformation of our economies and societies. In this regard, the government plays a key role in fostering inclusivity by equipping businesses, workers, and vulnerable groups with the requisite digital capabilities and skills. In Singapore, we are doubling down on efforts to create new pathways for businesses and jobs for workers who have been affected by the economic downturn. When travel restrictions and safe distancing measures were implemented as a result of the pandemic, many businesses recognized that traditional means of operations were no longer tenable. They had to learn new ways of conducting business digitally. The government is supporting our SMEs in this journey in several ways, such as increasing our funding support for them to adopt digital solutions. We are facilitating their participation in B2B and B2C e-commerce platforms with a regional or global reach to help them expand overseas. We are also working closely with industry partners to accelerate the creation of tech and tech-related jobs while investing in upskilling our people through traineeships. These training stints will put our people in good stead to embark on fulfilling careers in the flourishing infocom technology sector. But our efforts cannot and do not end there. We want to ensure that every enterprise, no matter its size, and every citizen, no matter his or her background, can participate meaningfully in the new COVID-19 economic and social environment. To achieve this, we established the SG Digital Office in June this year, mobilizing more than 1,000 digital ambassadors who are embedded in the community to help micro-enterprises adopt e-payment solutions and teach seniors digital skills. We have also enhanced assistance schemes to support vulnerable segments of our society, including lower-income families, with ready access to digital devices and the know-how to navigate the digital spaces comfortably and securely. To conclude, COVID-19 has accelerated the pace of digitalization. By some accounts, several years of change have been compressed into the past 6 months. Investing in digital infrastructure, building international governance frameworks, as well as strengthening the capabilities of our enterprises and people will position us well for the next phase of growth in the digital economy. A close partnership between government, industry, and the community is key to ensuring the success and long-term sustainability of our digitalization effort. Even as we push ahead in our fight against COVID-19, let us also seize the opportunities before us to build a future where technology can enrich the lives and livelihoods of our people. I wish everyone a fruitful discussion ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for those very insightful and visionary steps. Singapore is certainly at the front end of COVID response, and great to see how well you can using technology to respond to the demands and economic pressures of responding to COVID-19. I'd now like to welcome Tan Sri Jamaluddin Ibrahim, Managing Director, President and Group CEO of Axiata Group and a GSMA board member. Thank you. Over to you, Jamal.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. Thank you to GSMA for giving me the honor to present this topic called Leading the Digital Era in Times of Uncertainty. These are the 5 key messages I would like to present during this session. The first one, the impact of pandemic is devastating. We all know that. But it also gives rise to new opportunities. The acceleration of digitalization, which is going to be a big economic multiplier. The second point is that even pre-COVID, digitization is happening, but the main message here is that we need to accelerate. There are many challenges facing the countries in implementing digitization or in accelerating digitization. The fourth point centers around the strategies, which will center around digitization as a national priority and trying to galvanize public and private sector active participation and involves multi-pronged comprehensive scope. This is where I'm going to spend a bit more time on. Lastly, telcos can and must lead to help the digitization efforts given its infrastructure, skills, and reach. The next chart shows the impact of the pandemic, which is as devastating economically as previously the global crisis that we faced about 10 plus years ago. But I think it's actually worse than that. The next chart shows the good news is that the digitization of the economies and societies are on uptick, with digital economy poised to take a larger percentage of national GDP. And if you can see from this chart, the multiplier effects for digital economy and connectivity prove to be even bigger than just broadband. Now, these are the challenges that we face to achieve all of that. For the public sector and the government, there are resources issue, fragmentation, skills, mindset, and data sharing issue. For the public at large and also the businesses, there's a question of mindset, skills, awareness, affordability, and there's a question of digital divide and the broadband penetration. Lastly, the industry players, they have profitability pressure over the last few years, and the technology, the spectrum choices and availability, the economics are doing the acceleration and the fair access to all players in the market. But most of all, there must be a sense of urgency. As I mentioned earlier, digitization is happening, and in fact it is accelerating during pandemic, but that's not enough. All countries, all players must accelerate even more. Now, let's look at the strategies. There are 2 parts of the strategies. One is the policy aspect, the other one is the implementation aspect. If you look at the key proposal that I strongly believe in, digitization has to be a national priority. It cannot be an IT or telecom priority. It cannot be one minister's priority. It gotta be a national priority. It gotta be an agenda, as important as any economic agenda, top in the list. Now, it involves so many issues or things to do. It has impact to how the country build budget to support this. It involves the relook at taxes, both from a positive and a negative angle. How do you incentivize the whole country to digitize further? It involves relooking at laws and regulation beyond the laws that in fact impact or affect the telcos. It involves education, investment incentives, and so on. So this national policy should resolve fragmentation within the government department. It should look at the digital divide to ensure every element, every part of the segment of the society will benefit from it. It involves facilitating the players to resolve the economics of accelerating this whole process, be it connectivity level and also be it data level or application level, and provide coverage to almost every aspect of the society. It should encompasses laws and facilities and access to data sharing across all platforms, across all departments, and of course at the same time protect the data being used in a wrong way. And finally, the whole implementation, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of making this happen. The second policy strategy is, as I've said earlier, the government cannot do it alone. It is an enormous task. It is huge. You got to galvanize. You got to bring the private sector into the picture together, but in a coordinated, collaborative manner. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the scope must be comprehensive. It involves looking at connectivity infrastructure layer, both at the telcos, fixed, mobile, and IT. It should be encompassing the use of data and the data sharing and how we provide data to do more analytics, more intelligence, and more easy access to data. It should encompasses the application services, and finally, we must look at the digital mindset. How do you increase the mindset of every single player in the market, every single citizen, and every single department, every single company? And it involves actually improving the literacy, the skills, and of course, how do you educate everyone? And of course, relooking at a legal framework to facilitate this adoption. The fourth point is that everyone must contribute. It cannot be just one party. It cannot be just the government. It cannot be just the telco industry. It cannot be just IT. And everyone, even the OTT players who are benefiting from this whole digitization must contribute both financially and non-financially. And there must be same rules applied to those playing in the market. And lastly, there must be a concept of win-win-win for all. The public at large, the society, the players, the government, and all the businesses that will participate in this whole digitization. Now, to implement this whole policy, there are strategies that I thought I should bring up. There are 5 of them. One of the most important aspects is that this cannot be left by chance. It cannot be just done naturally. The government, the businesses just cannot look at it as one of those things that, yes, let's leave it so that we can, because it will happen naturally anyway, but that's not good enough. It got to be top-down, it got to be pushed with both carrot and stick approach. There must be some incentive, be it tax, be it whatever else, to incentivize companies to digitize, be it small companies all the way to large companies, be it even the citizen in the society at large. There could be consequences, meaning, as an example, companies will declare, or the government departments might declare, for anybody to participate in the tender, it can only be done through online, through digital means. And when you pay, it got to be done all cashless. There's no such thing as paying through the means through cash or whatever we are doing today. And that leads to the third point, that we must accelerate this whole cashless payment. We must develop a cashless society. And it cannot again be done naturally. We must push, we must accelerate to the level where everything will be cashless, or at least for most part. Now, within that, the one that needs a lot of help are the micro SMEs. Surely every aspect of the society or the businesses must be helped, and they must accelerate the digitization process, but the one that really need help, the micro SMEs. So we got to give priorities, or high priority to micro SMEs. The banks, the IT companies, the telcos, the government must help them. And one way is to onboard them is back to the third point, make it cashless, so that they will be naturally on board to the world of digitization. And it doesn't have to be a big jump. Some of them I've seen are already doing e-commerce using SMS. Not great, but it's a good start. Some of them using WhatsApp and to sell. Not great again, but it's a good start beyond SMS. Some of them are using Facebook, Instagram. Very good. And of course, eventually it must be pervasive, the use of the full e-commerce engine to be able to sell and their products, to also able to buy products from their suppliers. And last but not least, the telcos and the IT industry and the government must explore, deploy all technologies. Not every technology will meet all the requirements. We need to look at fiber to the home, or FTTH. We need to look at 5G and 4G, don't forget 4G too. And we need to look at fixed wireless access, and even the possibility of high throughput satellite, or HTS, coupled with the pre-planned and well-planned spectrum and fiberization plans. So those are the key policy strategies. There are 5 of them that I'm advocating. And to implement them, there are 5 key implementation strategies that I'm advocating very strongly. The last chart shows some related issues and matters. I won't have time to go through all of them, but this is something we have to be discussed eventually. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamal. That was fantastic, and we'll certainly miss you once you leave Axiata towards the end of this year. I'd like now to welcome the Right Honourable Keong Chiu, Minister of Science and ICT, Korea, to present Korea's New Deal and new vision for digital Korea.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon. I'm Choi Ki-young, Minister of Science and ICT of Korea. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Julian Gorman, the head of GSMA Asia Pacific, for inviting me to give a keynote speech at GSMA Thrive Asia Pacific. The title of my talk today is Turning Crisis into Opportunity, the Digital New Deal. I'm going to share with you Korea's experience in the digital age, why Korea is implementing the Korean New Deal, and the progress so far. Since the spread of COVID-19, we are living a world of new normal. The war against viruses is still ongoing, and overall economic activities, including production, consumption, investments, and exports, have declined. As the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, said, we saw 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. COVID-19 has made our lives contactless. Contactless activities such as working from home, online lectures, remote medicine, and online shopping have shaped our lives in a new way through digital transformation. We are going through a lifestyle revolution into a new normal. Korea had worries about which way we should be heading in the future. One way was to overcome the COVID-19 recession and boost employment, which was the most dire problem. But at the same time, we had to consider how to adapt to the inevitable digital transformation and the fourth industrial revolution for the new era after COVID-19. We had a national concern over how to pioneer the future of Korea rather than passively responding to COVID-19. On the screen, you can see the Hoover Dam. It's was the biggest projects of the New Deal during the Great Depression in the United States. Many people lost their jobs during the Great Depression. So the US government created jobs through large-scale New Deal projects, such as the Hoover Dam construction. Over 20,000 people were employed to build this dam. The Hoover Dam generated electricity and contributed to the region's industrialization, transportation, tourism, and urbanization. And then it became a symbol of US economic growth. The New Deal project was an economic revitalization initiative that created jobs to end economic crisis like the Great Depression and paved the way for the future. However, such an old-style construction project is no longer effective in creating economic values and preparing for the future. We need a new kind of New Deal for this era. The Digital New Deal is Korea's recovery strategy based on data, network, and artificial intelligence, or DNA, to overcome the economic crisis caused by COVID-19. Since the beginning of the new administration, Korea has laid the ground for digital revolution, digital innovation by implementing foundational strategies for digital technologies such as data, 5G network, and AI. Based on this, we take the Digital New Deal to achieve our goals of economic recovery, job creation, and preparing for the future. The digital age is all about data. Data is said to be the oil of the 21st century. It is a source of competition for all countries and companies, and the new capital of the global economy. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Facebook are the world's top 5 companies by market value. And they are all data platform companies leading the global market. In fact, it is data that decides the quality of AI. The more data, the smarter the AI. It's similar to the learning practice of children. As a child learns through various experiences, AI becomes smarter if it is trained with more data. As you can see in the slide, if there isn't enough data to train AI, it fails to accurately extract common features from the cat images, which will lead to incorrect recognitions of new cat images. However, if we feed AI with thousands of image data, AI can identify common features of cats and successfully recognize a cat in a new image. So to make AI smarter, we need a lot of training data. And it is a human that teach AI by tagging the objects in the image data with the object names. This process is called data labeling. As simple data labeling work does not require much skills, it can create many jobs for low-skilled workers in a short time. And when these workers gain experience, they can get permanent jobs or receive more training to work as data professionals. This slide shows the entire process of how data is collected and used. First, various types of data are collected through diverse devices. Data is sent through a 5G network to be accumulated, processed, and combined to be used in diverse areas. We call the collection of data a data dam, considering the analogy with Hoover Dam. A data dam contributes to create many innovative services, including energy saving, crime prevention, and particle pollution reduction. To make the Digital New Deal successful, we need to collect a lot of data. To this end, we'll release 142,000 pieces of public data and plans to increase the number of big data platforms from the current 10 to 30 in areas such as finance and transportation. And the selection will be based on Korea's major industries and innovative growth engines. We will also add 1,300 types of AI training data by 2025. One of our projects under development is Digital Jipenjeon, which is an integrated database service for libraries and educational contents. To transfer a large amount of data rapidly, we'll also build so-called data highway. We aim to have a nationwide 5G coverage ahead of demand by the first half of 2022 and create additional 41,000 public Wi-Fi hotspots. The collected data will be used for AI plus X project, which aims to apply AI to diverse areas. We will build an AI innovation cluster where local flagship industries and AI conversions will be facilitated. We also aim to secure Korea's competitiveness for AI semiconductors, which will play a key role in the AI ecosystem. We will train 100,000 AI and software talents to support future industries. We will also create more AI graduate programs to nurture innovative professionals and provide more AI and software classes in elementary and middle schools. We'll also expand digital education infrastructure in elementary and middle schools so that students can receive creative education anywhere, anytime. Digital inclusion is also one of our goals because there are concerns over potential digital divide induced by the accelerated digital transformation. To this end, digital literacy centers will be created to provide digital training for all. So far, I have presented Korea's Digital New Deal. Now I'll move on to the challenges that we will be facing while implementing this initiative. Many people expressed concerns over the potential job loss induced by the accelerating digital transformation. Historically, technological advancement and improved productivity have absorbed workers from reduced jobs in legacy industries through increased employment in new industries. Therefore, it is necessary to help workers in legacy industries switch careers to more promising jobs in digital transformation. To this end, we'll expand retraining programs for career change and establish a lifelong education system to help workers adapt better to new industries. The government's role in the Digital New Deal is only priming the pump. And it is the private sector who will actually employ many people and make investments. Another concern we have is how to reform regulations because regulatory reforms are crucial to driving large-scale private investment. The government's challenge here is to minimize conflicts between stakeholders when reforming regulations. To solve these issues, the Korean government take three approaches. First, ICT regulatory sandbox to help commercialize innovative new technologies and services that could not be launched in the market due to regulations. The second approach is the regulatory and institutional reform hackathon, which facilitates creating regulatory reform agreements through public-private discussions. We also use the one-step model, which aims to reach consensus through a professional advice and concession between stakeholders. The government will continue to prime water and work to reform unnecessary regulations so that the private sector can prosper. I hope that Korea's experience I shared today helps other countries turn crisis into opportunity as well. Korea will continue to strive to make the digital age prosperous. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Finally, I'd like to welcome a good friend, Tony Fernandez, CEO of AirAsia Group, and Sasha Twining, radio and TV broadcaster, for a fireside chat that I know everyone's going to be very entertained with. Tony was very entertaining last year, and I'm sure you're not going to be disappointed this year. Over to you, Tony and Sasha.
Hello and welcome to our keynote as part of the GSMA Thrive series, bringing together the industry's thought leaders, innovators and change makers. So pleased today to be joined by a man who almost needs no introduction, known in the fields of music, entertainment, leisure, football, and of course the airline industry. Welcome, Tony Fernandez. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. It's really good of you.
Thanks, Sasha. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, tell me first of all where we're talking to you. Where are you at the moment?
In Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, and it's a nice sunny afternoon here. Just going through the motions of this wonderful period we're in called.
Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting and very challenging time for a lot of people. I mean, let's start there. We'll look to the future in a moment, but let's just start where we are at the moment. We could go through so many challenging headlines. We could talk about the state of the airline industry. We could talk about what AirAsia has gone through, and it has been a very bleak picture that has been painted. Where or how would you describe the industry? How do you see it at the moment?
Well, I've been through so much in my 19 years as an aviation person, obviously coming from the music business. I thought I'd seen everything, but this is something else. The big issue is the unknown. We just don't know. I went through SARS, I went through bird flu. But they were regional. They were kind of mostly in China and North Asia, and they seem to have been controlled. In this case, we just don't know where the end is. And so the uncertainty is where the problem lies. The positive sides are demand is very robust. People want to fly. People want to get out. The world is very globalized. And so that's the positive side. But the real negative side is the unknown. How long is this going to last, and what does it look like at the other end?
I mean, where do you see the growth starting to come back? What particular area are you sort of anticipating you might see green shoots first?
Green shoots, obviously, you know, we're going through a little bit of a spike in Malaysia again, but in Thailand, it's virtually gone. And so Thailand, China are good examples of what the aviation industry would look like. Domestic, very strong comeback. In Thailand, by December, we'll probably be ahead of where we were pre-COVID in the domestic world. China's already showing that it's gone back to where it was pre-COVID in the domestic world. So that's where we see a recovery. It's going to be, I think we're in that aspect, we're in the right area of an airline industry. We're not in business class. We're not in first class. We're not in business travel. We're not long haul. We're short haul, you know, regional trips, fly from Singapore to Phuket, from Kuala Lumpur to Bali. And so I think that aspect, we're in the right parts of the business. People are more likely to have leisure travel, short business trips than intercontinental business trips for a while. And I think, you know, Southeast Asia has been very hard on COVID. And so, you know, lockdowns are very quick. Containment is very quick. And so the recovery will be longer lasting in our part of the world. But, you know, that's where I foresee it. And in terms of, you know, I started this airline after 9/11. Everyone predicted the end of the airline industry. No one liked security checks. You know, at one stage you were almost naked before you could go through to an aircraft. And now people are used to it. People know what to wear, etc. So you're going to have a new health protocol. It will be painful at the beginning, but like everything, we adapt as humans, and people get used to it. So it's going to be a rough ride, but I think airlines are here to stay. Globalization is here, and travel is here. So you know, we get ready, and as you know, we're pivoting our business as well.
So, and we will talk more about the pivot in just a moment. But what do you think is the biggest thing that is going to really boost what you're talking about, and sort of put that sort of like that push under the industry back again? Is it a vaccine that you're waiting for, or is it really an established track and trace, maybe with some technology in there? You know, what do you think it will be that will give people maybe the confidence to start flying? Or is it a financial thing that people need, you know, the security in their own finances to start flying again?
I think we're in a very complicated position. I think they're going to be different types of people. I think younger people just don't care anymore. And so they want to travel. They don't feel that COVID is a killer for them. Obviously, older people are going to be much, much more careful. So they're going to be segmented issues of market. I'm not so optimistic of the vaccine. I think that's going to take a while, because even when it comes out, it's going to take a long time to be distributed. But it gives the industry a little bit of a boost. But I think public health, I think green channels between countries is really going to be the first impetus. And then maybe later on vaccines, later on herd immunities, etc. But I think the first instance is people now know flying is safe. So if you go from one low rate of infection country to another low rate of infection country, that's going to be the first green bubble. And then obviously vaccines will come along. And I think one that's not been talked a lot about is treatment. Hopefully there will be treatment for COVID. You're beginning to see also the virus is adapting. It's more contagious, but it's less of a killer. So I think hopefully, while everyone's been focusing on the vaccine, I'm hoping that more drugs will come out that help people recover. And I think that's also something that shouldn't be ignored.
Tony, you're known for spotting the trends in the market. I mean, where would you put your money now? Would you put it into pharmaceuticals, or would you put it into some sort of technological way of dealing with this?
I mean, I think obviously the world is changing very rapidly. You know, it's funny you say that. I left the music industry because the music industry wouldn't adapt to digital. They wanted CDs, and I said, look, you can't hold technology back. that's like saying let's hold motor cars back and continue with the horse industry. Technology will change, and technology always betters human life. The fourth industrial revolution will obviously cause a lot of people to lose jobs, but they will reskill themselves into other things, and life will improve. So the trends, I'm not being anything brilliant here. I mean, obviously, health is going to be a large part, and I think preventative health is going to be a big topic. You know, if you look at the very end of one spectrum, in Malaysia, glove companies are now worth more than banks. You know, and everyone wants a glove. You're going to see all kinds of prevention of viruses and cleaning fluids and all kinds of stuff. But also, people are going to start understanding their body better from blood chemistry, from what you're seeing with Apple Watches, etc. So I think health is going to be a big sector, but it is a massive sector anyway. Where do you put your money in health? There's so many different ways of putting it. But I think one interesting aspect of health is preventative medicine. And secondly, I think it's time for the hospital supply system to relook at itself. You've had state systems, you've had very expensive state systems, but you've never had low-cost hospitals. You've never had an easy jet of hospitals. What does that mean? Does that mean halfway through the operation you say, sorry, you run out of money, so pay up, we won't stitch you up? Or does it mean we give you half a Panadol? No, I mean, I think in the same way that I saw the airline industry was phenomenally inefficient, I see the hospital distribution system phenomenally inefficient as well. The state can't look after everyone. And equally, private medicine's too expensive for most. But there is a gap in the middle, just like low-cost carriers fulfilled, to take the burden out of the state system, coupled with an innovative insurance scheme, to create a new hospital supply system for those who can't afford private, but could afford a little bit more than the state. And then those who really need the state system gets proper health care. But I think COVID has shown the problems of an inefficient health system, and there needs to be new distribution, new look at the supply of medical treatment.
Do you think that sort of model then would work in your marketplace? I mean, is that just an idle wonder that you've had, or is that actually something that you are looking into?
Yeah, I've had that thought in my mind for a very, very long time. But you know, the airline industry plus the other adventures I've got myself into have kept me occupied. But yeah, I think it's there, and if it's not me, I'm sure someone's going to come up with it.
Someone's going to do it.
You've seen various models already come out from Colombia, etc.
I mean, you use the word adventure. You've got involved in various adventures. Let's talk about your latest one, the AirAsia Super app. Yeah. Now, I noticed earlier when you first mentioned it, you talked about it as a pivot for AirAsia, the airline business. Is that how you see it? I mean, do you see it as a total change of direction, or a bit of an add-on, or maybe something just for the next few months or couple of years? I mean, what's your thinking?
Oh no, it's a very definite. It's been in my brain for a long time, pre-COVID. I mean, but if you go back in history, AirAsia was a digital company before anyone was in Southeast Asia. You know, big ones, the Grabs, the Gojeks, etc. We were the first airline to start using the internet to sell airline tickets, to bypass the travel agents. It wasn't our model. We took it from Ryanair and EasyJet, etc. So, but we were a digital company from the very beginning. So we understand that market. Secondly, I always kept data. I mean, I didn't see this data revolution coming, but I always kept data very close to me. I felt data was the most important aspect for the airline. And actually, you now begin to see that it is our most valuable product, our most valuable asset, data. So we've taken all that wonderful data we've got over the last 19 years and pivoted the business into AirAsia Digital, which has 4 or 5 very exciting businesses, using the assets that we have already and then fully moving them into a digital world. And I think we've got a really good little business that's going to come out of it, which has obviously been accelerated by this COVID scenario that we're in.
I mean, but you are, certain parts of the app are obviously directly competing with the likes of Uber Eats or Zomato in different marketplaces. It's also been put that it looks like a competitor to Grab or to Gojek. You've already mentioned both of those. I mean, how do you see it sitting? Do you see it as being a competitor? Are you up against it, or do you think you've got something different to offer?
Yeah, I mean, number one, give my political line that I've been using for 19 years, where I've said, I'm not after taking anyone's apple pie. I'm here to make the apple pie bigger. That's effectively what AirAsia did. We came in here, people were flying in Malaysian Airlines and Singapore Airlines, but a whole chunk of the market was not because they couldn't afford it. So we just grew the market. People who flew in Malaysian Airlines continue to fly in Malaysian Airlines and Singapore Airlines. So in the same way, Grab, Gojek, all these guys, there's still a massive untapped market. So the first instance is, and this isn't a zero-sum game. There isn't just one bank in England. There isn't just one delivery system in England. There's going to be a few, and some people are going to have certain as their favorites. In the same way, there isn't one low-cost carrier anywhere. People build new ones. So we think we're fulfilling a market demand, one. We feel we have a special relationship with our customer through the knowledge we have of our customer, through the fact that our data is of higher value from the transactions. We have a very strong rewards program. So we're trying to make it more efficient for the customer to stay with us. They trust us from a certain type of transaction. And now we're offering them more transactions underpinned by a strong payments and logistics system and a rewards program.
Yeah, I was looking at the app last night. I mean, there are so many different facets to it, so many basically different icons that you can click to go into different areas of your life. What's the entry point for new customers?
Well,
Where do you anticipate bringing them in?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously travel is in the same way. If you looked at Grab, mobility was their first port of call. Travel is going to be your first port of call. But I think food is going to be a big area for us, whether it's food delivery, whether it's fresh food delivery, whether one day it's pet food delivery. We think pet food is going to be a huge product in Southeast Asia. And cross-border. I think we have a big advantage in cross-border e-commerce because the likes of Shopee and all these other guys, it takes 3 to 4 days to deliver stuff. Our aim with our planes is to deliver things in 24 hours. We think Amazon is a great logistics company. It's known as e-commerce, but why do people use Amazon? Price is okay, but you get your product in a certain number of days or hours. And I think that's where we think, if you go back to your early question, we have a slight competitive advantage in terms of logistics.
So you're leveraging what you've already got.
Yes.
to go into different services.
Right.
I was quite interested actually reading about Grab, how they are looking at the underbanked to look at that area of finance. And I just wondered whether that was also an area of your financial pillar that you felt was an untapped market, or whether actually for your particular customer that wouldn't necessarily fit.
Oh, no, 100%. I mean, my customer goes from a student into a migrant worker. Into a leisure traveler. But there are two types of unbanked. There's unbanked, that's really unbanked, and there's a young millennial and even an older millennial, whatever that is, who may be fed up with the way they react with their bank. Bank haven't changed their processes for years and years and years. Same way that AirAsia came in and simplified flying through buying on the web, getting out all these complexities out. We think big pay, and in less than 18 months, we've got 900,000 customers. We've just opened in Singapore. We've got a remittance business that's growing at 45% to 50% every month. And people love the product because it's simple to use. We take all the learnings from AirAsia of making airlines simple and bring it into financial services and create an ASEAN bank. Again, going back to that data that I mentioned, because we know our customer, because it's KYC, because we have passport information and identification information, it makes financial regulators comfortable as well because we know our customers.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly where I wanted to go with this, because financial regulations, particularly with cross-border transactions, has always been a difficult or a sticking point before when dealing with those sort of financial questions and financial services. I mean, what's your attitude there? Do you think that there needs to be a relaxing of regulations, a shake-up, or are you quite content to work within the ones that you have?
No, I think quite content the ones that we have. I mean, you can't get away from AMLA, and there are scams every day, and you've got to appreciate that you've got to protect people's money as well. And I think those regulations are fine. But data and transparency, and later on blockchain. I mean, for instance, we are big believers in blockchain. I mean, there's total transparency in that. You can't hide any transactions. So we're in the business of being transparent, in being value, and being fast. And so I don't see any problems with the regulations. I think some of them have to be adapted. I mean, some money lending laws are from the 1920s, where they're required to sit face to face. Some of those things have to be changed to move to the modern world. I think a digital bank license, capital requirements are quite different from an offline banking. So, but generally, the regulations are fine.
But so when you look at the app, and this has obviously been a while that you've been thinking about it, I imagine it's probably been sort of put on hyperspeed over the last few months. Yeah. But you would have had, as soon as you thought about this, because of the way that you are, Tony, you would have thought what your end game was going to be and what success was going to be. And that probably changed a bit due to COVID. But what's your measure of success now for the app? Maybe for different parts of it as well. What would look like a good result for you?
Yeah, when I think of, if you allow me to go back to AirAsia, my aspiration was to, without sounding like Miss World, to make Southeast Asia a smaller place, right, and allow everyone to fly. We've accomplished that. And my second aim was to make a brand that was as synonymous as Coca-Cola in Southeast Asia. We've achieved that for sure. My aim now in this app is to make financial services as easy as it is to fly, to give the common man a chance to get a loan. Because if you go to a bank now as a common salary, it's tough. You have to give so much security, which you may have, to give the entrepreneur, such as I was, a chance to start a business, because entrepreneurs are going to drive the Southeast Asian economies, the ASEAN economies. So bring democracy to financial services, create an ASEAN bank that allows that. And then create as we did with cross-border tourism, create cross-border e-commerce so that ASEAN becomes a little bit more self-sufficient. So someone making a Thai cracker in Bangkok can sell it to 700 million people in Southeast Asia, as opposed to just their own market. That would be something that I'd like to see happen from cross-border and logistics, and to create, as we did in tourism, to create one market in financial services, and to create one market in logistics and e-commerce. That would be a great thing, and to make ASEAN much more like Europe. You're a European product. I mean, I know you have your issues in the UK, but Europe is a success story.
I think when there's a comment I've read of yours about AirAsia that you had, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but 50% of your passengers were first-time flyers, and that you saw as a great positive result rather. Do you have a figure like that for your financial services, like having maybe 50% of those who sign up, that's their first financial service? I don't know whether that is too ambitious or not, but what is it? Can I push you on a figure? Yeah,
to be honest, I'm going to leave this call and start working on a figure. I haven't. But when I start, and I could have lied, but I'm not going to. When I started the airline, the figure that hit me was only 9% of Malaysians had ever flown. And I thought, wow, if that's not a business opportunity, what is? I think when I started Big Pay, the amount of people that had plastic was very little. I don't have the percentage, but it was very hard to get a credit card. I don't particularly believe in credit cards, so we created a prepaid card. we allowed people to have a card that they could transact on the internet. So the idea was to democratize payment services. The idea now is to democratize remittances, so they don't have to go to a shop in the middle of town and then their aunt has to pick it up from the Philippines. They can just do 3 clicks and they transfer their money. I don't know what that percentage is, but I'm going to come back to you next time you interview me.
Okay.
Because I think that's
I will hold you to that one, because
a great time to have. But suffice to say, the thinking is the same as AirAsia. Bring democracy to financial services. Let the common man have a chance. Everything we've done is about the mass market and bringing some equity and democracy to the underserved.
Tony, we're running out of time. If I may, can I just quickly turn to some of your other interests? I'm in London. I'm talking to you from London. I'm going to mention football. Queen's Park Rangers QPR Football Club. At the moment in the UK, no fans are allowed into stadiums. And just very quickly, for the benefit of our international audience, this is having a huge impact on football finances. What do you think is the way forward? I mean, your majority stakeholder at QPR. I mean, is it streaming? Is there going to be some sort of new app for streaming that will make the money? Is there, what do you think?
Yeah, streaming is happening. It can't replace fans. It can't replace corporate boxes. I think football needs 2 things very quickly. Salaries have gone out of whack, and football owners have to start realizing that it's time to re-look at football budgets, and footballers have to realize that times are changing. That's a very, very delayed reaction. And secondly, there has to be a redistribution of wealth. The Premier League gets 90% of all television income. Now that's a market demand, but the Premier League can't survive without the Championship, without the League One and League Two. We are the source of players that comes into the Championship, and we're the development. So, here's a real case of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. So football authorities have to re-look at that. And footballers have to get real. And football owners have to realize that the money's going to dry up at some stage. And so we have to get real on salary caps and re-look at the whole cost structure of football.
Yeah,
and
the finances.
The distribution of revenue.
Tony, final question from me. I've always thought an entrepreneur is somebody who can assess a situation and see what's around and learn from it and either move on or stay within an area. And it is all about learning. And I just wonder, over the last few months, if I may just ask you a personal question as to what you have learned, maybe about yourself and the way that you have reacted, or you've learned about the world or the business or the industry, that maybe surprised you and that you will take forward into the future?
It's a hard question, but number one is resilience. I've said it all my 19 years. There are 2 ways of dealing with a crisis: put your hat in the sand, blame everyone else, and cry. We haven't done that. There's no point. You've got to pick yourself up. You've got to find yourself, and you've got to move on. I think the motivating factor for me is keeping jobs. I've had to make people redundant, which I've never had to do in 19 years. We've been on an upward growth for 19 years. And that is something that's a new experience for me. I thought I'd been through everything. But, having to tell someone they've lost their job through no fault of their own, is the hardest thing to do, and something I don't think I would be able to do. But you have to do it for the betterment of the remaining staff, and you have to have the objective of bouncing back and hoping to rehire all the people you let go. And that's I think the inner self. I thought I'd been through everything. I thought I was tough as nails. I've had everything thrown at me. But having to make people redundant has been the most painful thing that I've ever gone through. But it's made me even more determined not to give up and to fight till the very end, and try and reskill people, rehire them in these new businesses that we're doing, and hopefully restart the airline and bring them back. That's been very painful for me. It's been a real it's the final chapter of learning, I think, because I haven't had to do it. I've been through losing an aircraft in my 19 years. You know, I've been through SARS, bird flu. I've had governments against me, politicians wanting to, put me in all kinds of issues. Governments, foreign governments not liking me, etc. But the most painful thing I've had to go through and continue to go through is having to downsize my company and let fantastic staff who have been with me for years and years and years through no fault of their own. And that's painful, but then it gives me more strength to make sure that I don't give up. And that, I thought I was a fighter, but boy, I really am now. I really know that I won't give up. And it's the power of the people that we've lost that has given me that energy.
Tony Fernandez, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sasha, Tony, and all of our speakers today. I hope you have found the opportunity within the messages and the discussion this morning to really understand how both business, government, and mobile operators are responding to COVID-19, and heard from some real leaders on how technology is really providing a foundation for resilient economic and social response to the pandemic, but also setting us up for a great future. That concludes the opening session of Thrive Asia Pacific. Be sure to join us again for the next session on connectivity, the foundations for a digital society, and join us over the next couple of days because this is only the start. Thank you.